Welcome to Peralta Matters. I'm your host, Jay Calhoun. This is the show where we talk about all things that matter to Peralta and the community colleges. Our guest tonight is Ron Gerhard, Vice Chancellor of Finance for the Peralta Community College District. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. Let's start basically with a little bit of your services for the district. Give us a background of what you do and how you do it.
What I do? Well, as Vice Chancellor for Finance, I'm ultimately responsible for budget, accounts payable, purchasing, and everything involving money, if you will. So it's somewhat broad-ranging.
Right.
Yeah.
Given the national problems with money, given the state problems with budget fixing, and our own challenges within the district, give us an overview, an ideal synopsis of what we're facing right now financially.
Well, nationally, it's, you read newspapers as well as I do, and in the state level as well. We're in a mess. Some economists say we're at the bottom of recession, and there's some improvement, but we're not necessarily seeing that very timely.
Right.
So as a result, in translating it to what it means to Peralta, we're having to provide the services that is expected of us by our community and constituents with fewer resources. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the question on how to do that and how to do that adequately.
Are there some specific numbers to these glaring disparities that we're having here?
Well, at the state level, a few weeks ago, the governor signed a budget that essentially, depending on your use of the terminology, closed a budget of approximately $19 billion. Now, there were some difficult decisions that had to be made in order to close that.
Right.
And, in many respects, community colleges fared very well compared to some of the social service programs.
Right.
But to community colleges, it essentially, there was some additional funding for us for serving more students for growth, but we're never have been fully funded.
Right.
So it's pretty much the same story for us as it has been in the past, serving more students with fewer dollars.
Speaking of that, serving more students with fewer dollars, where, for those who don't know, there's a FTES, which stands for full-time equivalency of students. So you have a certain amount that you get for that, and then you have this overage of students who need the same services, who need the same classes. Who pays for those students?
Well, ultimately, it's everybody. For just using numbers as an example, last year we served approximately 22,000 full-time equivalent students. Okay. But yet we were only paid for approximately 19,000. So we served 3,000 more students on that workload measure, full-time equivalent students, that we were paid for. So essentially it was trying to spread those dollars as thinly as we possibly can to serve as many. Now you can, from a finance perspective, you can only do that structurally for so long because ultimately you have the increase in costs related to, serving those students, those additional students. And it, as it has here in the past, reduced our reserves, our fund balance. And so now we're at a point that we had to bring our revenues in alignment with the number of students that we're serving. And so, it was a difficult decision and a very, I wouldn't say a popular one, because essentially, in bringing your revenues in alignment with your expenses, some things that continuously had been there in the past can continue.
Right.
So,
speaking of the governor's passing or the state budget being passed, we talked earlier about the cut to categorical programs and the cut to the new workforce programs. Does that again become another creative challenge for you to find a way to, one, keep some programs that are definitely essential to these students, at the same token, like you said, match what we actually have to deal with?
Right, absolutely. In these categorical programs, include DSPS,
Right.
EOPS, CalWorks, CARE, many of the vital and critical support services that our student population needs to be successful and matriculate. Last year, the cuts ranged in magnitude from 12%, some up to 16%. So, they have been devastated. This year, we thought that perhaps there was going to be some relief and some augmentation of those programs, but as of last week, the governor signed a trailer bill that actually eliminated from the budget additional monies that initially thought we were going to receive. So, right now we're in a holding pattern. Essentially, bringing our budgets in alignment and serving as many students as we possibly can with the resources we have.
What can a community, what can we as a student body, what can we as an organizing base who support these students and these funds that go on in these colleges, what can we do to help? What can it possibly be done on a more grassroots level, not so much the district or the teachers, but what can some other things be done to help this problem that we have district-wide?
Right. I would say at a more grassroots level, and is really advocate, telling our leaders, politicians, telling our story. Telling, basically community colleges are as mentioned before, never have been fully funded, but at the same time we are serving retraining, everything else related to students in our in our constituent group for the workforce, ultimately improving our economy and going back to the tax base. So I would say the easiest thing in my perspective would be to advocate and to tell our story and make sure that the leaders in Sacramento or wherever understand that community colleges for our communities and for the state as an economic engine are critical and vital. And cut in funding does dramatically more than just balance a budget, but it impacts future budgets. I would say that'd probably be the easiest thing that could be done. But there are a few other things that community colleges around the state are doing, ranging from advocacy all the way up to taking to their voters parcel taxes, which is would be a bridge to that to some degree. But it all depends upon the temperament of the community, what they're willing to do.
Definitely. Well, considering that this is a fairly new spot for you and a new position, we want to officially welcome you to the Bay Area.
Thank
you. Definitely thank you for coming on the show. Again, I think it's informative and extremely important that people know not just the stuff we read in the newspapers, the big numbers, the 12 billion missing, the this, that, and the other, but actually the fundamental roots of how we do our jobs and what's going on at Peralta. So again, thanks, Ron, for straightening that out for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for allowing me to get on here and tell the message.
Yeah, right. We'll have you again.